doing it wrong every single morning. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see how a simple 30-second shift could change the way your body feels all day. As we age, muscle loss, commonly referred to as sarcopenia, doesn't happen overnight. Instead, it develops gradually, often without noticeable symptoms at first. It's similar to a slow leak in a tire. Everything seems fine until one day you realize your strength, balance, or energy isn't what it used to be. Research from organizations like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and Harvard Health explains that after the age of 50-60, the body naturally begins to lose muscle mass due to hormonal changes, reduced physical activity, and decreased efficiency in protein synthesis, which is the body's way of repairing and building muscle tissue. In a moment, it becomes clear why the timing of your daily habits, especially in the morning, can influence how your body responds to this process, and later you'll understand why many people unknowingly accelerate muscle loss through small but consistent routine choices. The early hours of the day are particularly important because your body is transitioning from a state of rest to activity. During sleep, muscle activity is minimal, circulation slows slightly, and the body enters a repair mode. According to insights from the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, this period is essential for recovery, but it also means that when you wake up, your muscles and nervous system need a signal to turn back on. Without that signal, the body may remain in a low activity state longer than necessary, especially if the first actions of the day involve sitting, scrolling on a phone, or consuming caffeine without movement. In contrast, even a brief moment of intentional muscle engagement can stimulate circulation, activate nerve pathways, and gently prompt the body to prepare for movement. In a moment, you'll see how this tiny action influences your metabolism and coordination, and later you'll realize why skipping it can contribute to that heavy, stiff feeling many people associate with aging. Another key factor supported by public health sources like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the World Health Organization, WHO, is that consistency matters more than intensity when it comes to maintaining function in older adults. Many people assume that only long workouts or strenuous exercise can make a difference, but research suggests that frequent low-effort movements throughout the day can be just as important for preserving mobility and muscle awareness. This is where the idea of a 30-second morning habit becomes powerful. It acts as a daily activation signal, reminding the body that muscles are still needed and should be maintained. However, a common mistake is underestimating these small actions or delaying movement until later in the day, which can reduce their cumulative benefit over time. It's also important to approach this habit safely and mindfully. This information is intended for general educational purposes and should not replace personalized medical advice. Individuals with existing health conditions, joint concerns, or mobility limitations should consult a qualified healthcare provider before making changes to their routine. Understanding how your own body responds is essential, and small adjustments can make a meaningful difference when done consistently. As the body ages, the process of maintaining muscle becomes less automatic and more dependent on intentional daily habits. Muscle tissue functions much like a savings account, where deposits come from physical activity, proper nutrition, and recovery, while withdrawals happen through inactivity, stress, and natural aging. After the age of 60, this balance begins to shift, and without conscious effort, the body tends to lose more muscle than it builds. According to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, sarcopenia is influenced by several biological changes, including reduced levels of hormones such as growth hormone and estrogen, both of which play roles in muscle maintenance and repair. Additionally, the body becomes less efficient at using dietary protein to rebuild muscle fibers, a process known as anabolic resistance. In a moment, it becomes clearer how this reduced sensitivity affects daily strength and energy levels, and later you'll understand why small, well-timed actions can help counteract this decline. Another important factor is the decline in physical activity that often accompanies aging. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, highlights that many older adults gradually reduce their movement due to lifestyle changes, joint discomfort, or fear of injury. This reduction in activity sends a signal to the body that less muscle is needed, leading to gradual atrophy. Harvard Health explains that muscles operate on a use it or lose it principle, meaning that without regular stimulation, muscle fibers shrink and weaken over time. In a moment, you'll see how even minimal daily activation can interrupt this process, and later you'll realize why the timing of that activation, particularly in the morning, can amplify its effect. Neurological changes also play a significant role. As we age, communication between the brain and muscles becomes less efficient, partly due to a decline in motor neuron function. The World Health Organization, WHO, notes that this reduced neuromuscular coordination can affect balance, reaction time, and overall mobility. This is why some individuals may feel less stable or slower in their movements, even if they haven't experienced significant muscle loss yet. A common misconception is that this is simply an unavoidable part of aging, but in reality, regular activation and movement can help maintain these neural pathways. In a moment, it becomes evident how simple habits can reinforce this brain-muscle connection, and later you'll see how neglecting it can accelerate functional decline. Many people also misunderstand the role of exercise intensity. There is a belief that only high-intensity workouts can preserve muscle, but research referenced by the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic suggests that consistency and frequency are often more important, especially for older adults. Short, repeated bouts of movement throughout the day can provide ongoing signals that encourage the body to maintain muscle tissue. A common mistake is relying on occasional workouts while remaining sedentary for the rest of the day, which limits the overall benefit. Another mistake is skipping morning movement entirely, which delays the body's transition from rest to activity and reduces the effectiveness of later efforts. Understanding these combined factors, hormonal shifts, reduced activity, neurological changes, and misconceptions about exercise, helps explain why muscle loss can accelerate after 60. However, it also reveals an important opportunity. By introducing small, consistent actions at key times of the day, especially in the morning, it is possible to support the body's natural systems and slow this process in a practical and sustainable way. The idea of a 30-second morning muscle activation may seem too simple to matter, but its effectiveness lies in how the body responds to early signals after waking. When you first get out of bed, your body is transitioning from a state of rest into activity, and this transition period plays a key role in how your muscles and nervous system perform throughout the day. A brief, intentional activation, such as gently engaging major muscle groups, stretching with light resistance, or performing a controlled bodyweight movement, acts as a signal that tells the body these muscles are needed. According to the Mayo Clinic, even light physical activity can stimulate circulation and improve muscle responsiveness, especially after periods of inactivity like sleep. In a moment, it becomes clearer why this signal is more about communication than intensity, and later you'll understand how repeating it daily reinforces long-term muscle awareness. From a physiological perspective, this short activation works by engaging the neuromuscular system, which is the communication network between the brain and muscles. As noted by the National Institutes of Health, NIH, aging can reduce the efficiency of this communication, leading to slower or weaker muscle contractions. When you consciously activate your muscles in the morning, you are essentially waking up these pathways, encouraging the brain to reconnect with different muscle groups. This is similar to turning on a system that has been idle overnight. Without that initial input, it may take longer to reach full functionality. In a moment, you'll see how this affects coordination and daily movement patterns, and later you'll realize why skipping this step can contribute to stiffness or reduced confidence in movement. Another important aspect is circulation. During sleep, blood flow is more evenly distributed for recovery, but movement is limited. The Cleveland Clinic explains that muscle contractions help push blood through the body, delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues while also supporting joint lubrication. A short burst of movement in the morning helps restart this process, which can reduce the feeling of stiffness many people experience upon waking. This is particularly relevant for older adults as joint flexibility and circulation naturally decline with age. A common mistake is remaining sedentary after waking, such as sitting for extended periods or immediately focusing on screens, which delays this natural activation process. In contrast, even a few seconds of movement can begin to reverse that stiffness. Behavioral habits also play a role. Many people instinctively reach for their phone or a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, which creates a pattern of inactivity during a critical window of time. Harvard Health emphasizes that establishing small, consistent habits can have a cumulative effect on overall health, especially when they are tied to existing routines like waking up. The 30-second activation works well because it is simple enough to repeat daily without requiring motivation or significant effort. However, a common misconception is that such a short action has no real impact, leading people to skip it entirely or replace it with more demanding routines that are harder to maintain. It is also important to understand that this habit is not about intensity or performance, but about consistency and signaling. The World Health Organization, WHO, highlights that regular moderate movement is essential for maintaining functional ability in older adults. By incorporating a brief activation each morning, individuals create a daily cue that supports muscle engagement, circulation, and coordination. Over time, these small signals can contribute to better movement patterns and greater awareness of the body's needs, especially when combined with other supportive lifestyle habits throughout the day. When you activate your muscles in the morning, even for a short period, several important processes begin to take place inside the body that go beyond simple movement. After waking, the body is transitioning from a resting state where heart rate, circulation, and neural activity are relatively lower. A brief moment of muscle engagement helps initiate this transition more efficiently. According to the Mayo Clinic, muscle contractions play a direct role in improving blood circulation by helping move blood back toward the heart, especially from the lower parts of the body. This increased circulation delivers oxygen and nutrients to muscle tissues and organs, which supports overall function and reduces the sluggish feeling many people experience after sleep. In a moment, it becomes clearer how this improved circulation affects not just energy levels, but also joint comfort. And later you'll understand why skipping this step can contribute to ongoing stiffness throughout the day. Another key mechanism involves the nervous system. The connection between the brain and muscles, known as the neuromuscular system, relies on signals that tell muscles when and how to contract. As people age, this communication can become less efficient, leading to slower predicrea times and reduced coordination. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, notes that regular muscle activation helps maintain these neural pathways by reinforcing the connection between the brain and different muscle groups. When you perform even a brief activation in the morning, you are essentially reminding your brain how to engage those muscles effectively. This can improve balance, stability, and confidence in movement over time. In a moment, you'll see how this relates to preventing that heavy or unsteady feeling. And later, you'll realize why consistency matters more than intensity for maintaining this connection. Joint health is also influenced by early movement. During sleep, joints remain relatively still, and the fluid that lubricates them, called synovial fluid, can become less evenly distributed. The Cleveland Clinic explains that movement helps circulate this fluid within the joints, reducing friction and improving flexibility. A short period of stretching or muscle engagement in the morning can help restore this lubrication, making movement smoother and more comfortable. A common mistake is assuming that stiffness is simply an unavoidable part of aging, when in many cases it is linked to prolonged inactivity. Another mistake is starting the day with sudden intense movement without gradual activation, which can place unnecessary strain on joints and muscles. Gentle, controlled activation provides a safer and more effective way to prepare the body for daily activity. Metabolism also responds to early muscle engagement. While a 30-second activation is not a substitute for exercise, it can act as a signal that encourages the body to shift out of its resting metabolic state. Harvard Health highlights that muscle tissue plays a role in energy regulation, meaning that maintaining active muscle engagement can support overall metabolic health. This is particularly important as metabolism naturally slows with age. By initiating movement early in the day, individuals may feel more alert and ready for further activity, which can lead to healthier movement patterns overall. Finally, it is important to recognize that these internal responses are interconnected. Circulation, neural activation, joint lubrication, and metabolic signaling all work together to support physical function. The World Health Organization, WHO, emphasizes that maintaining functional ability in older adults depends on regular movement and reducing prolonged periods of inactivity. A simple morning activation habit aligns with this recommendation by providing a consistent, low-effort way to stimulate these systems. Over time, this can contribute to improved comfort, mobility, and overall physical awareness, especially when combined with other healthy lifestyle practices. The effectiveness of a short morning muscle activation habit becomes much more meaningful when it is supported by other daily lifestyle choices that influence how the body maintains and uses muscle. Rather than viewing the 30-second routine as a standalone solution, it helps to think of it as a starting signal that prepares the body for what follows throughout the day. According to Harvard Health, muscle health is influenced by a combination of movement, nutrition, recovery, and consistency, not just isolated efforts. When these elements are aligned, the body receives repeated signals to preserve strength rather than break it down. In a moment, it becomes clear how nutrition directly supports this process, and later you'll understand why what you do after that initial morning effort can either reinforce or weaken its impact. One of the most important supporting factors is protein intake, which provides essential amino acids required for muscle repair and maintenance. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, explains that as people age, the body becomes less responsive to protein intake, a condition known as anabolic resistance. This means that older adults often need consistent, well-distributed protein throughout the day rather than consuming most of it in one meal. Skipping meals or eating very low-protein diets can limit the body's ability to maintain muscle, even if some physical activity is present. A common mistake is assuming that appetite alone is a reliable guide, when in reality, intentional meal planning may be necessary to support muscle health. In a moment, it becomes clearer how movement patterns interact with nutrition, and later you'll see why long periods of inactivity can counteract these benefits. Movement throughout the day is another critical component. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, emphasizes that reducing sedentary time is just as important as engaging in structured exercise. Many individuals perform a short burst of activity in the morning, but then spend long hours sitting, which can diminish the positive signals created earlier. Muscles respond best to regular stimulation, even if it is light or moderate. This can include simple actions such as walking, standing, stretching, or performing routine tasks that involve movement. A common mistake is believing that one period of exercise compensates for an otherwise inactive day. But research suggests that prolonged sitting can negatively affect muscle and metabolic health regardless of occasional activity. In a moment, it becomes evident how consistent movement supports circulation and muscle engagement, and later you'll understand how recovery plays an equally important role. Sleep and recovery are often overlooked but are essential for maintaining muscle. During sleep, the body performs repair processes that are necessary for tissue maintenance, including muscle recovery. The Cleveland Clinic notes that poor sleep quality can disrupt hormonal balance, including those hormones involved in muscle repair and energy regulation. Inadequate sleep may also reduce motivation for physical activity, creating a cycle of reduced movement and further muscle decline. Another common mistake is focusing only on daytime habits while ignoring nighttime routines, such as irregular sleep schedules or excessive screen exposure before bed. Supporting healthy sleep patterns can enhance the body's ability to respond to both nutrition and movement. Stress management is another important factor that interacts with muscle health. Chronic stress can increase levels of cortisol, a hormone that, when elevated over long periods, may contribute to muscle breakdown. The World Health Organization, WHO, highlights the importance of managing stress through relaxation techniques, social connection, and balanced daily routines. While stress is a normal part of life, consistently high levels without recovery can interfere with the body's ability to maintain muscle and overall well-being. A common misconception is that stress only affects mental health. when in reality it also has physical consequences that influence energy, movement, and recovery. When these elements, nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress management, are combined with a simple morning activation habit, they create a supportive system for maintaining muscle health. Each component reinforces the others, forming a consistent pattern that helps the body adapt positively over time. Rather than relying on a single action, this integrated approach aligns with recommendations from major health organizations and provides a practical, sustainable way to support strength and function as the body ages. The long-term value of a simple 30-second morning habit lies not in the action itself, but in the repeated signal it sends to the body over time. Human physiology responds strongly to consistency, and small daily behaviors can shape how the body adapts, especially with aging. When a person engages their muscles each morning, even briefly, it acts as a cue that these muscles are still needed and should be maintained. According to Harvard Health, the body adapts to the demands placed on it, meaning that regular use of muscles encourages preservation, while lack of use can accelerate decline. In a moment, it becomes clear why repetition is more influential than intensity, and later you'll understand how this principle affects long-term mobility and independence. This concept is closely tied to what researchers describe as neuromuscular adaptation. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, explains that repeated activation of muscles helps maintain communication between the brain and muscle fibers, which is essential for coordination, balance, and strength. As people age, this communication can weaken, but it does not disappear entirely. Instead, it requires more frequent reinforcement. By practicing even a short activation daily, individuals help sustain these neural pathways. A common mistake is expecting immediate or visible results, which can lead to frustration and inconsistency. However, the real benefit occurs gradually as the body becomes more efficient at responding to these signals. In a moment, it becomes evident how patience plays a role in this process, and later, you'll see why consistency creates a compounding effect over time. Another important factor is behavioral sustainability. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, emphasizes that long-term health improvements are more likely when habits are simple, realistic, and easy to repeat. A 30-second routine fits these criteria because it removes common barriers such as time constraints, physical fatigue, or lack of motivation. Many people make the mistake of starting with complex or demanding routines that are difficult to maintain, leading to inconsistency or complete tawakkuf. In contrast, a small, manageable habit can be integrated into daily life without disruption, increasing the likelihood that it will be sustained over months and years. This consistency is what ultimately supports physical function. It is also important to consider how this habit contributes to independence and quality of life. The World Health Organization, WHO, highlights that maintaining functional ability, such as the capacity to move, balance, and perform daily tasks, is a key component of healthy aging. Muscle strength plays a central role in this, affecting everything from walking and standing to preventing falls. By reinforcing muscle use daily, even in small ways, individuals support the physical foundation needed for these activities. A common misconception is that significant changes require large efforts, but in reality, gradual and consistent actions often produce more stable results. At the same time, it is essential to approach any new habit with awareness and safety. This information is intended for general educational purposes and should not replace personalized medical advice. Individuals with medical conditions, mobility limitations, or recent injuries should consult a qualified healthcare provider before adopting new routines. The Mayo Clinic advises that exercise and movement should be adapted to individual needs and performed in a way that avoids strain or discomfort. Listening to the body and adjusting intensity accordingly is an important part of maintaining long-term consistency. Ultimately, the impact of this habit is cumulative. Each day's action may seem small, but over time, it contributes to a pattern that supports muscle engagement, coordination, and overall physical awareness. When combined with other supportive lifestyle factors such as proper nutrition, regular movement, adequate sleep, and stress management. This simple routine becomes part of a broader strategy for maintaining strength and function. This aligns with guidance from major health organizations, which consistently emphasize the importance of regular, moderate activity and sustainable